El programa de justicia para humanos comenzó a implementarse en el año 2004 por iniciativa del entonces juez de la Administración número 5 de Panamá, actual presidente del Supremo Tribunal de Justicia de Ríos, doctor SUSANA MEDINA, que un día por semana constituía su despacho junto a un delegado judicial o secretaria en cada una de las comisarías del Departamento de Panamá, recibiendo las inquietudes, consultas y reclamos de personas vecinas. Así es que con la participación de diferentes áreas de justicia y bajo la coordinación de la doctora Susana Medina, este programa se llevó a cabo durante los años 2004, 2006, 2011, 2012 y 2014 en la ciudad de Panamá y en el año 2015 en la ciudad de Asociación de Uruguay. A partir del año 2018 y la propuesta de la doctora Medina se aplica como política permanente del Poder Judicial de Ríos y desde el año 2022 es coordinado provincialmente por el Instituto de Formación y Protección del Mundo Judicial, doctor Mundo. A través del programa de justicia para barrios se atiende a vecinos y vecinas, ya sea en la escuela, en un grupo o espacio público, para acercar el servicio de justicia sin necesidad de concurrir a los tribunales de su localidad y de esta manera tratar de resolver cerca de su lugar de residencia sus preocupaciones, necesidades y temas de competencia judicial. Forman parte del programa integrantes de la magistratura y el funcionariado del Poder Judicial de Los Ríos, así como profesionales de equipos técnicos y interdisciplinarios pertenecientes a los organismos judiciales. En la jornada de acceso a justicia se pueden hacer denuncias por violencia familiar, intrafamiliar, por ejemplo, formular consultas sobre el seguimiento de denuncias en trámite, cuota alimentaria y pedir asesoramiento sobre régimen de comunicación, tutela, prescripción de la capacidad, entre otros trámites. Además, colaboran con las jornadas el registro de estados y discapacidad de las personas, la Administración Nacional de la Seguridad Social, el Instituto de Discapacidad Provincial y el Instituto Nacional de Servicio Social para Jubilados y Pensionados, según sea la modalidad de la norma de cada Constitución. Durante el 2023, año de elecciones, el Tribunal Electoral Provincial participa activamente con el fin de hacer conocer a la ciudadanía el padrón electoral para eventuales reclamos por errores y omisiones. En la actualidad, el programa continúa el crecimiento y expansión territorial. A modo de ejemplo, durante el 2022 se ejecutó a través de 73 jornadas mensuales, en las que participaron 68 localidades, 70.520 personas en los 150 horas de trabajo y se realizaron 29 ciudades definitivamente.
Muy conforme con este programa que hoy se hace acá en este lugar, porque de una estamos muy conformes, realmente muy conformes con esto.
Miren cómo yo si tengo que ir a la Jamaica y hacer un trámite, no puedo, porque soy imposibilitada. Esto es maravilloso.
Gracias. Vamos a continuar con la moderación a cargo de Jeffrey Anderson.
Thank you, Dr. Palma. It's good to be back in Argentina. It's okay, it's working. Is it? Got it. Okay. It's working. I just want to make a few remarks. As we get started, I want to thank Dr. Palma and also the great effort of the staff of NCSC in Argentina. We were here 10 years ago, hosting a conference in Argentina, same room. We were here with many of you as we continue the mission that we have for administering justice and justice excellence. I also wanted to recognize the other Chief Justices that are here, and I know there are many that are here with us today, and I wanted to recognize your leadership efforts as well. And also, I just returned from Ukraine last week, and as we talk about issues of judicial security every day, I was worried about the judges and the staff in Ukraine who are giving their lives to protect their country. And when I was there, I felt their fear. And I felt their fear for a week. And I hope that their insecurity becomes security in the future. And I'm also very honored to be again in Argentina with Justice Gazzini and all the justice and staff here. We've done great things together here. And I think this panel is a continuation of our work together in our cause. And I do want to say, as I introduce Chief Justice SYKES, I've actually had personal experience with the speakers here in so many ways. He was just in Panama with me, where he was one of the leaders on his historic mission to formalize the working relationships of the Chief Justices of the Caribbean and the Chief Justices of Central America. It was a great effort, and he was a great leader in helping us coordinate that effort. And I've worked with him for many years. And Mr. Chief Justice, if I could turn it over to you, Your Honor, to begin our conversation here. Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you very much, Jeff. Good afternoon, all. Welcome to my fellow Chief Justices here, and court leaders, court administrators. And let me just take a moment to associate with the sentiments expressed by my colleagues who spoke previously concerning the passing of the judge in the United States in the very distressing circumstance under which he died. And it is a reminder of how sometimes our jobs can bring us in danger. And so we just wish to be in solidarity with the judges there and the very difficult time that they're going through. I have about 10 minutes. It is to come up on the screens. I think it's up there on the two screens at the side. Not yet. So what we're talking about is judicial modernization around the world. And I'm going to take a slightly different take.
Here we go.
There we go. And it's essentially looking at the, if you, sorry about that, I'm jumping again. It works. Let's take it. Right. So what is it that we do as judiciaries? Well, core functions, resolving legal disputes in a timely, just, and fair manner. And in countries based upon the rule of law and the separation of powers, whereas an arm of government is separate but not isolated. And in speaking about the modernization of the judiciary, within recent times there's been a great emphasis on giving effect to the court having full autonomy in the administration of its activities. And for me, as Chief Justice, what this means in practical terms is that the Chief Justice or head of any judiciary must have a support team independent of the legislature and the executive in order to do this effectively. And so this I got from Professor Shetrit, who has written a lot on these things, and these are essentially 5 measures by which you can determine how independent the judiciary is. You have financial autonomy, management of own resources, management of projects and programs, procurement of goods and services, and the construction of facilities, because these are support services that are needed if judiciaries are to deliver on the mandate that they have. They cannot do it without this kind of support. So here we have from in 1995 the Law Association of Asia and the Pacific. They met in Beijing, China. One of the things that they spoke about was the preparation of budgets, something we have to take on board more as we go along as modern judiciaries. So it speaks about the need for the budget to be actually prepared by courts in order to deliver the services that they need to deliver. So in Jamaica, we embarked upon this modernization, enacted an act of parliament, it amended the Supreme Court Act, and it created an administrative arm of the court, which was independent of the executive, independent of the legislature. And if you notice from the list up there, you will see strategic planning, human resource management services, internal audit and risk management, finance and accounts, none of the things that judges have training or experience in. So it tells us then that in terms of running a modern judiciary, there are skills that as judicial officers we simply don't have. Many of us went to high school, completed school, went to university, began working as lawyers. Nobody told us that 30 years down the road we'll be having discussions about strategic planning and human resource management and budgeting and procurement and all of these things. Other things that we have to deal with, customer and client services, maintenance of court facilities, providing administrative support for judicial officers, and an important aspect, providing information to the public in respect of court systems and procedures. This is now something that I'm responsible for as the Chief Justice. So, do we have the staff necessary to deliver on these services? So this is not just about the judicial skills now, it's about the support staff that will enable the court to deliver on these things. So we now have a statistician. When I started practicing in 1986, who ever heard of a court having a statistician? We now have a full-time statistician, and he has a statistical unit, and it enables us now to plan more effectively. Our budget planning processes have become more effective because we can now say, we can now project how many cases we'll be disposing of, how many cases are anticipated to come in, and how much resources we need to get it done. Human, material, financial. We are now able to do this, and this is one of the things that modern judiciaries must be able to do, because speaking to the executive about independence of the judiciary goes in one ear, comes out the next. So when you have a dialogue with them, you have to speak to them about productivity and how they're going to get value for their money. If that is not the kind of discussion you're going to be having with them, they will sit with you, smile sweetly, nod, and then you leave without the resources that you need. So this is part of my perception of what modern judiciary looks like and sounds like. So you're talking about being accountable for public funds, because we are trustees of public funds. The public needs to know, if we give the judges more money, what are they going to be doing with it? Are we going to be getting value for money? So technology, important, but not an end in itself, but a means to an end. So how can judiciaries use any form of technology to improve service delivery, increase access to justice, reduce wait times? And that is really the complaint that happens certainly in the Commonwealth Caribbean, where persons say the cases simply take too long. And so as a court, we must be a learning organization. COVID taught us that. I'm not wishing another pandemic, but what if another pandemic comes along? Have we prepared ourselves to respond to any new crisis that may come along? Because courts have to remain open even in a crisis. Persons have to have access to justice. Persons have to be able to have matters heard, because life goes on even in the midst of a pandemic. How are we preparing for that? And while a court is a symbol of authority and a manifestation of state power, the truth is we provide legal services in the form of dispute resolution, and a new expression that I've been learning is it's a constant learning process, therapeutic justice in the form of family and children's courts. And so that is my take on what a modern judiciary looks like, sounds like, and feels like going forward into the 21st century. And true to my agreement, I've kept within the time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you very much. I also want to introduce Chief Justice Ryder Rush, and she's here in two roles. as Chief Justice of Indiana, but also as the immediate past president of the Conference of Chief Justices of the United States. And I thought this was an excellent occasion to introduce the two conferences together, that of Argentina, that of the United States. And so I'd like to turn the microphone over to Chief Justice.
Buenos dias. Very glad to be here fluent this morning. So first I'm going to talk about the Conference of Chief Justices. We have it in Indiana. We're going to have our 75th anniversary next year. We have a Chief Justice in every state and territory, and we come together. We work with the National Center for State Courts on problem solving. What are the issues that are hitting our courts? So in addition to technology, I'm going to talk about some of the other modern ways that we're dealing with who I call the court customers, the people that are before our bench every day. So there's a Chief Justice in every state. Every state has a constitution that sort of puts them in charge of the administration of justice in their state, and that's a big responsibility. We have 30,000 state trial court judges in the United States. 98% of the cases, 98% of the cases, 98% of the cases in the state courts, nope, she can't hear me. The interpreter can't hear me. 98% of, nope, she still can't hear me.
It's not working. I think it's dying.
98% of all cases in the country are in the state courts. So what are the challenges that we look at when we look at modernization? Of course, it's technology. Every state's working on it. Probably about half the states are paperless. In my state, we have about 7 million people. We have 1.2 million cases that get filed. Now you can pick up your phone and look up any case. On my iPad up here, I've got every case in the state of Indiana. I've got the cases at the Supreme Court, the cases that I'm voting on. In a single year, we have about 55 million page views, people going on their court case and looking at it. And if you have children, you can also find out if your children are in trouble. I found out my son had a ticket he never told me about by looking him up on my case. Some of the other technology that we're working on are things like eviction diversion. We're getting ideas, we're pulling content experts together with Conference of Chief Justices from around the country. What is working? We have eviction crisis, post-COVID home crisis. And what's more traumatic for a family than when they lose their home? So through the National Center for State Courts and their working, we are putting navigators in our eviction courts. And what a navigator is a social worker. So when somebody loses their housing that day, and again, it's an access to justice issue because most of them don't have attorneys, and we're working on that. We help them get a housing and other solutions. We're doing kiosks right now for people to be able to access the courts, because some people don't have broadband, don't have that cell phone, and we're putting kiosks in non-traditional places like Walmart, libraries, because you can't have the kiosks only available for people to get self-help during work days, because people are working and have to get to their court case and be able to file documents in non-traditional times. The task forces that we put together for the Conference of Chief Justices, which has led to a wealth of information that we're able to give our state trial judges on mental health, substance use disorder, fees and fines. And what we've learned on dealing with things such as substance use disorder and mental health, that 70% of the people in our jails are either there because of drug addiction, substance use disorder, mental health, or co-occurring. So our modern approach of dealing with those people is not just lock them up. Let's see what we can do at the front end of their case to divert them from the criminal justice system. So what we have on the website, the National Center for State Courts, we have years of work now with current materials. What are the best practices for somebody who's addicted to methamphetamine? How do you get competency evaluations done where somebody is too mentally ill to even understand the court process? And they're available to all of you too. We have bench cards for judges, which will go through, if you have a pregnant woman who's addicted to drugs, what should your dispositional orders look like? And how do we divert them? Because we lock a lot of people up. I don't know if your countries do as much as my country does. We lock up way too many people. We lock up way too many people that could be diverted earlier. So what I tell our judges is you have a superpower, judges. And use your superpower for good. And that superpower is if you call a meeting, people will show up. They're scared of you or something, I don't know. It's your contempt power, I don't know if it's that. But if you want to bring the players together that are dealing with mental health in your community, substance use disorder, get them to see where are your diversion programs and how do you get them not to be in. Because our courtrooms are sort of the governmental emergency rooms for society's biggest issues, correct? So what we're committed to, the Conference of Chief Justices, is to look at those issues and find a better way. And it's working. Because we're training our judges. We had a training program, we sent a judge and a psychiatrist from every state, kind of train the trainer. We have medical legal partnerships where we're putting lawyers in mental health and physical health facilities, because somebody may go see a doctor, but they don't realize they've got 10 unmet, it might be a homeless veteran that can't get housing or can't access services. So those have been very effective. Civics education, the Conference of Chief Justice and National Center for State Courts, I loved what Susan said about getting out from behind your bench and going into your community. And I wasn't here for yesterday's program, but I heard it was wonderful that Jeff Apperson and Mike Binger did on distrust. How do you get people to trust the judiciary? We have a lot of distrust in our country right now with institutions. And every institution has plummeted with regard to public trust. And for us in the judiciary, that's our currency, right? We don't have the power to issue money. We don't have the power to arm. Our power is somebody standing outside that courtroom and deciding that they're going to get a fair shake, and how do you increase it? So what we're doing with the Conference of Chief Justices, and we're also doing in my state of Indiana, is empowering the judges to get out from behind the bench. Think about things of having a night court, civics education. Our appellate court in the state of Indiana recently won the Sandra Day O'Connor Award. They've done 700 oral arguments in every community in our state, where people are able to see the appellate process up front and center. We're using the data that we are able to collect now to see where we are having racial injustices in our community. Time frames. You know, if you have a judge that's taking 3 years, that's not justice, but now we have that data, and how do we use that data in a way that we're doing a better job on case processing. The other materials that we have that are located on the National Center website, if you want to move your civil cases faster, how do you do it? There are best practices for triaging a case and case management to give guidance to your judges on getting them moved. Family law cases. It shouldn't take so long to get child support, to get an uncontested divorce, to do property settlement agreement. So we have best practices, and we are rolling those out, and we are collecting the data on that. All that material is available to all of you as well. The criminal case processing and the time frames, coming out of COVID, getting the jury trials going again, we're going to be doing regional summits in the United States and training our judges on better ways to get their shortcuts, efficiencies. The way we've always done cases is not going to work for the next generation. And what do we need to change? When we move from remote to partial remote to hybrid, what are best practices? And we have a report now where we're collecting data saying a lot of people like remote hearings that have access to that, and what's the right balance? People are showing up, they don't have to just work, get child care, transportation issues, just as you saw in that film. So that has been very effective. So the technology, I will say we're very ahead with regard to going paperless. Now we're looking at modernizing with looking at who the people are before, what are their needs, what are our court customers' needs, and are we best meeting those needs? And you've got to work like you've never worked before with your other branches of government. I constantly say, and Chief Justice Sykes, I love what you said, I say courts are engines of economic development. If you want your economy to thrive, you've got to have a funded court system. People have to get their court cases processed on a regular basis. And then you start talking to your legislature about return on investment, right? They know that language. I've been begging money from legislators and county councils for the last 30 years. And that does seem to resonate with them. If you start looking at your courts in a different lens, they are engines of economic development. And if it takes 5 years for a business to get their case litigated, then somebody's not going to want to do business in your particular community. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce did a report that 78% of businesses look at the litigation environment of a state before they decide to do business there or expand a product line. So, I mean, I'm always, if you've got any other tips, I'm always looking at that. When I went from being a trial court judge to the Chief Justice, my local county council came to the state house so they could heckle me because they get tired of me going and asking them for money on a regular basis. So, thank you all. I'm looking forward to the gala tonight and getting to know all of you.
I don't have a mic right now, but I'd like to introduce Chief Justice Chief Justice Brittenell from Chief Justice of Arizona, one of our most efficient states in the United States. And I turn it over to you, Your Honor.
Thanks, Jeff. Muy buenos días. Gracias por todo. Es una ciudad muy bonita. Pero mi español es muy limitado. Yo hablo en inglés. A couple of preliminary points. First, I think every trial judge that puts on a robe understands that you can make a decision at some point in your career which is going to cause people to be angry, perhaps even sufficiently angry that they're going to try to hurt you. And so, let me simply add to the comments of the others by saluting and encouraging Judge Wilkins and encourage every trial judge who puts on the robe and makes those difficult decisions, even though they know that many can be dangerous to do that. The other preliminary comment I would make is that I was intrigued by Justice SYKES' comments as well. I think every court system goes through that process. I know the United States did, but Arizona did specifically, the process of understanding eventually that you can't be an independent branch of government if you rely on the other branches of government to manage your business. So that you have to have your own management, you have to have your own HR, you have to have some control over your budget if you're going to call yourself a third branch of government. So, my best wishes to you as you go through that process. It's intriguing. We've had discussions about modernization of the courts, and what I'd like to talk about is not so much individual instances of modernization as I would like to talk about the process of modernization. Jeff has mentioned a couple of times today that we in Arizona like to think of ourselves as being a court of innovation, a progressive court, one that likes to try new ideas, one that likes to be on the cutting edge of technology and in the forefront of innovation in the United States at least. And I think, and so I've been thinking a lot lately about how do you maintain that? How do you maintain that culture of excellence, that desire to improve every opportunity? Again, in other words, how do you continue that process of modernization? And I think in Arizona, the primary reason for it is our strategic planning process. And that sounds a little bit facile, but it really does have an impact in Arizona. So you have to understand that in Arizona, Chief Justices serve a 5-year term. I'm in the 4th and a half of my 5-year term as the Chief Justice of Arizona. And before a Chief Justice takes office in Arizona, the Chief Justice starts the process of creating a new strategic plan. And at the risk of comparison to Soviet bloc, we got 5-year plans. But again, that works pretty well. If you think about it, 5 years is probably a pretty good time frame for a Chief Justice to serve. Everybody does it differently. But that's how we do it in Arizona. And we have a formal process for that. And so we call a committee together. We bring people at every level of the court and outside of the courts. Meeting committees, we solicit ideas, and we put together a formal program. We print several thousand copies of it. It's not formally printed. And it's given to everybody at every level of the court. Every judge gets one, every clerk gets one, every court administrator gets one, the public gets one, the legislature gets one. And really what we do with that plan is set the goals of the branch. And so that's what the administrative office of the courts, our bureaucracy looks at to determine what they're going to spend resources on. Every judge in the state of Arizona knows that's what we're going to focus on. And as it turns out, what we put in the plan is what in fact gets done in the state of Arizona. So my plan, and intriguingly enough, the number one goal, the plan consists of 5 goals that we always do. And the goals are consistent from term to term so that we don't just start over, we maintain the effort as we go. And the number one goal for the last at least 3 administrations has been access to justice. And it's been interesting to listen to all of you talk about the issues with access to justice in your various jurisdictions. It's interesting that you have the same problems we have. Arizona has a tremendous access to justice problem, as does most of the United States. And so I'm anxiously listening for solutions and ways we can better improve on that. We're doing a couple of interesting things in Arizona. And Dave Byers and I will be talking about that on Friday. We're still around Friday afternoon. We're going to be talking to you about it. But we send that plan out. And we understand that we're going to accomplish the things. Let's just do 2 things. Unless the Chief Justice set a set of goals that he or she wants to accomplish, and unless everybody else knows that these are the things we're going to work on, we'll consider other ideas that these are going to be our priorities. My strategic plan has 137 goals in it, 137 projects under 5 goals. By the time I'm done as Chief Justice, we will have accomplished 98%. We will only not do about 4 of them. So it's been really effective in terms of causing us to modernize things in areas of the courts. That is, those initiatives happen on a regular basis. And just to finish up, I was intrigued by something Justice Rush said, because it's been a problem in Arizona. We all went through the pandemic. And I don't know about you, but we had tremendous innovation with the pandemic. They say we had 10 years worth of technological innovation in the space of a year. And I think that's true. We went immediately, we're paperless in Arizona, we went immediately to remote hearings. We kept the courts open. We were severely limited the number of people that got there. We had the same kind of experience with regard to evictions cases. Many more people showed up for those hearings when we could do it remotely. But what I've been fascinated by is all of the judges, frankly, that want to go back. We're done with the pandemic. We don't have to do this anymore. We don't have to have remote hearings. We don't have to do paperless. We don't have to do things like that. We're going to go back to the way it was. And I think similarly to Indiana, our response to that was, no, we're not. We're going to try to figure out what works. We're going to try to stick with what works. And if that means you're going to do virtual hearings, you're going to do virtual hearings. In Arizona, the way we did with that is we came up with an administrative order. I signed an order that said, these types of hearings are presumptively going to be online. And unless you have a really good reason, that's how you're going to do it. I listen to trial judges. If you have a good reason, you'll make a change. But otherwise, we made it very clear that we're not going to go back. And I would be fascinated to hear your experience in that. I'm an old guy, and I didn't want to go back. So. And that's really what I think.
Thank you very much. I know most of you can hear me. Can everybody hear me pretty well? No?
Oh, she can't hear.
I know you can't hear me right now. Don't worry, I've got it covered. I've done this before with Dr. Palma. Dr. Palma is going to serve as our liaison for interpretation. But I do think it's important, if any of you have any questions, Spanish or English, that we can ask.
Es importante si tienen preguntas en español o inglés que las realicen.
So, does anybody have any questions for the Chief Justice? Anybody? Would like, yes, please. And stand up, please. Oh, we got it. Okay. Good. All right. Please stand and say your name and ask your question.
Buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Agustín Olmedo. Soy secretario general del Tribunal Superior de Justicia de la Provincia de Córdoba. Estoy a cargo de la Oficina de Coordinación de Niñez, Adolescencia, Violencia Familiar, Género y Primer Juvenil. Ha sido muy gratificante todas las charlas que hemos escuchado y quisiera preguntar, aprovechando que están los presidentes de Cortes, si tienen algún avance en referencia a la temática de niñez. Nosotros en Córdoba acabamos de presentar un proyecto muy importante que tiene que ver con el proceso de adopción. Se han acelerado las inscripciones a través de un sistema online y se han simplificado los procesos. Es decir, creo que es una temática que tiene que ver con el acceso a justicia, no de las personas que se acercan a la justicia, sino de la justicia cumpliendo otro rol tiene que acercarse a esos niños y niñas que esperan ser adoptados. Y quisiera saber si algunos de los países que hoy representan tienen algún avance en referencia a este tema.
We have Adoption Day. It's the statewide Adoption Day. So courts just do adopting, getting completely caught up, so you're not waiting, because it's hard enough for a child to wait to be placed. But if they have to then wait for a court to get their date, that helps. We've also got committees and commissions looking at children that are in detention. It has to be uniformity and best practices at the front end. We have a program called Juvenile Detention Alternative Initiative, where we've been able to close 2 state detention centers for children and keep them in the community. And again, it's an evidence-based best practice program. I was a juvenile court judge, so was Chief Justice Bruno. Our passion is working with children. So using sort of the position that we have now to make statewide and nationwide reforms is important. But sometimes if you just have a holiday, we invite the newspapers into the courtrooms to celebrate Adoption Day, and it's tripled the number of adoptions we've been able to do quickly.
Anybody else have a comment? Yes, sir.
The only thing I'd add is, as a result of the work of the Chief Justice's Task Force on the Court's Response to Mental Illness, which both Chief Justice Bush and I worked on, we're engaging in what's called the Upstream Project. And that's a project to move children out of the juvenile justice system and into the mental health system at every opportunity possible to give them the treatment they need. And then I would second your comment on Adoption Day. There are many things we do as judges which are not very happy, but Adoption Day is one. Everybody's happy.
Questions? Anybody else have a question? Maybe I'll pass. Judge.
Mi nombre es Mundo, soy juez de garantía de Chile, y básicamente era un comentario a la opinión que señaló el honorable magistrado BRYAN. Siento que la presencialidad y la virtualidad tiene 2 caras, porque por un lado la gente reclama justicia, rapidez, eficiente, calidad, y claro, la virtualidad permitió conectarnos en un país, Chile es un país, las distancias son muy largas, y claro, el teletrabajo y la virtualidad permitió no tener que desplazar a los diputados, en caso de Modernización, se podían conectar de distintas regiones. Sin embargo, también la pandemia evidenció las carencias que tenemos y las diferencias que existen en la sociedad, porque quien tiene acceso a Internet va a poder conectarse, pero quien no tiene acceso a Internet, que no tiene recursos, tiene un sitio donde tiene plata para, con suerte para comer, difícilmente va a poder pagar una buena señal, una buena red. Por lo tanto, esa gente, incluso gente también mayor, que prefirió ir al tribunal personalmente para poder quizá tomar su audiencia, porque no tenía acceso a manejar Internet. Entonces, siento que el Poder Judicial, los Poderes Judiciales tienen la obligación de generar instancias híbridas y de acceso igualitario y una igualdad real, porque la igualdad no puede ser solamente una igualdad formal, ni considerando además los bajos porcentajes de aprobación que tenemos los poderes judiciales. Siento que es una responsabilidad, además, con el respeto obviamente que nos merecen las instituciones, el juez de primera instancia es el que está en la primera línea, es el que conoce la realidad, es el que pasa muchas veces las carencias del sistema. Entonces, si uno analiza la jerarquía que compone todos los poderes judiciales, claramente, y yo lo he señalado, ojo, en el Poder Judicial de Chile, yo he invitado, yo siempre digo, yo les pido a los ministros de la Corte Suprema que vayan a las audiencias, porque esa es la única forma de que puedan entender cómo los usuarios se presentan ciertas dificultades para poder participar en algunas audiencias. Por lo tanto, siempre que la virtualidad y la presencialidad en esta modernización,
is not much different than yours. We call it the digital divide. We recognize that there are people in our country certainly that can't afford the devices and don't have access to the internet. And so you're absolutely right. To the extent that we're going to go down the road of virtual hearings, which I think we need to go down, we have to find a way to make sure that everybody has access. And we've done that in a couple of different ways. We're trying to expand, and this is a governmental problem, not a court problem, but expand internet access across the board in Arizona. And then we've had a whole number of digital pilot projects, including digital grand juries and digital actual jury trials, virtual jury trials, and we provide the devices. And many of them are phone connected, so they work on cellular service instead of actual hardwired digital or wireless internet. So you can come, we have a number of, I think there are 1,200 in Maricopa County iPad type devices. If we want you to serve and you need one, you can have one of those. But we've had them configured so that the only thing they will do is communicate with our system. So we get them back because they're not of any use to anybody other than to do that. So I couldn't agree more on that specific issue.
Go ahead, David, yes.
Just a follow-up comment. I think we forget that the poor, the elderly, physically coming to court is a much greater problem than the digital divide. We've done polling on our citizens. They much prefer not having to take off over, get child care, ride 3 buses, walk 2 miles to court. The old way of doing things was convenient for the judges. It was very inconvenient for the poor, the elderly, the working poor, the people. And we find there's many fewer people who can't get access digitally that can actually take off the board. So we see our attendance in court going way up for virtual hearings. Now that's not the minimum. The fact that some people still are going to be held for internet, that's true.
Thank you. Any comments on David's comments? I think the hybrid approach is one that we all learned based on our COVID experiences. And I do believe that access issue is very important, David. Introduce yourself.
Gracias. Hace un rato comentaba, soy María Púlice, soy presidente de la Corte de mi Estado, Tribunal Superior de Justicia del Estado de Querétaro, en México. Y decía hace un rato, honorable Mr. BRYAN, 5 aspectos que califican la independencia de los poderes judiciales. Uno de ellos es el manejo de su presupuesto. En mi país lo que tenemos en las leyes es que el Poder Legislativo aprueba el presupuesto anual al Poder Judicial. Y ese presupuesto nos lo administra el Poder Ejecutivo a lo largo de este año fiscal. Nos van dando administraciones cada mes, cada 3 meses, para ir pagando los servicios personales. En mi estado no tenemos problema, no nos quitan un solo peso al Poder Ejecutivo. Mi tema es que ese presupuesto anual que aprueba el legislativo, yo soy de la idea y de la firme convicción que en cuanto se abre el presupuesto me lo tienen que entregar en su totalidad para poder administrarlo y a partir de esa administración de los rendimientos hacemos crecer nuestros propios tribunales y lo aplicamos en lo que necesitamos. Mi pregunta es a ustedes como presidentes de Cortes, ¿qué modelo tienen? Donde el legislativo les aprueba y el ejecutivo les va haciendo las administraciones cada determinado tiempo, o una vez que les aprueba un presupuesto, se los entregan en su totalidad al Poder Judicial para ir administrando, y claro, hay rendición de cuentas, la revisión de la entidad superior de fiscalización, todo, con todo eso se cumple. Pero esa es la duda de lo que quisiera que ustedes me compartieran. Muchas gracias.
No way.
Thank you. This is the last question.
We don't get all the money together, but what we have been improving on is that we are now learning and improving each year with how to have an operational plan, a spending plan, a procurement plan. So the budget, overall budget is approved, but then you're required now to structure your needs, your budgetary needs, quarter by quarter during the financial year. And that is something that is new to us as a judiciary. And so that is how now we have been working with the executive, because as you would know, we don't have the power of taxation or anything of that nature. So we have to work along with the executive. So once we get our plans in order, then it's usually much easier to work with the Ministry of Finance in that regard. And hence the need for the other skills that judges simply don't have to assist the Chief Justice in actually running a modern judiciary. These are now vital skills that are absolutely necessary for modern judiciaries to function.
Well, thank you, Your Honor. And Dr. Palm, I think we're going to need to close, I believe. I just wanted to say thank you to our great panelists and also our great audience. So thank you very much. Thank you all. Next breakouts? Luis? Next breakouts? Flavia? Next breakouts? Okay. So we're going to adjourn. Thank you all very much. And we'll be seeing you in the next 2 days. We're going to have fun. Thank you. We need a picture.